Hey folks, let's talk about use context in this video. So use context is pretty much like any other hooks in React hooks. It is also a function. And why do we use hooks and what is it? And let's talk about that. So before we dive into the context, use context, let's understand what is context, right? Why is that introduced by React? So let's say you have this app component, right? Let me drag it right here. So you have the main root component index.js, and then in that we are rendering this app component, right? In the app component we are displaying these buttons. So if I want to let's take an example, quick example, that I want to color this button and assume that that color is coming from its parent, right? So how do we pass that? So we can pass color equal to green, right? We're passing the prop to the app. Obviously we capture that in the props here. Then if I want to style that, let's say background color, and we give props dot color, right? Now we change it to green. So let's assume that like this is just a one level of tree. We have root component, inside that it is just rendering the button. So let's say you have another component here, and then that component is rendering another component, and that component is again another component. So if you have a deep level of components, and all the components would have to use this value, or only the one that is the deepest level would have to use this value, what would you do? You would have to pass this color props.value to all the chain of components. So you have to pass as a prop to every component, even though all the components doesn't need that value. The component that needs value is only the last deepest component. So you'd have to pass all the way, right? To address that, to make it simple, React introduced the concept of context. So using context, you don't have to pass this value as a prop. It will be automatically available wherever you have that context, right? So for that, what we need to do is, first you need to create context. So let's say we call this as a green context, right? React dot create context, and then we don't have to pass any default value there, so that's cool. So now we have the green context here. So what we need to do, this is our app component, so we need to wrap that component with a provider, right? Context provider, we call that as a context provider. So context by default will have a provider component where you would wrap it, right? So here you have a green context.provider, and then you are wrapping this app component within that. Now app becomes a child for this provider. So the advantage with that is, whatever value you provided the provider, that value will be automatically available to all of its child components. That could be any deep level of component, doesn't matter. If app rendering another component and that component renders, it goes on, right? That value will be available for all of them. So now since we're using the context provider, let's remove this value. We don't have to pass the prop anymore. That is the whole point. And then here let's pass value. Let's call the same thing here. Let's call color equal to green, right? Now we added the value. So how could we use that context in this component? Now let's remove these props, and let's remove this as well, and keep it simple, right? So the color is gone already. Now how could we use the context? So that's where you use context as a hook. So using that hook, you import that context here, so you get that value. Okay, so let's say this is color, that's what you're getting, right? And then use context. You need to pass which context you want the value from, right? I want the value from green context, because this green context is not available in this file. That's why we're getting this error, right? See, green context is not defined. How could we have this available here? So quickly, what we can do, we can create a new file here. Let's say this one. Let's create a new file here. Let's call that as my context.js, right? Now let's copy this create context over there and export it, right? So, and we're using React there, so let's call React. Now this green context is exposed. Since we're exporting there, we don't have to get it from local, so let's import that green context from my context. So that is good. And here we're also passing that here. Let's import that as well here, green context from my context, right? Okay, so compiler is gone. Now we got the color. So you see the difference, we're not passing any value to the components, right? This is just wrapped around the provider wrapped around the app. Now we got the color here from the context. What we can do, we can directly use that color. See, as soon as I save it, it will turn to green because the value is coming from their context, right? So so let's print down the context value here. So we're providing value to the color and then color here. Okay, that's good. Now let's print down, let's see what's the color that's coming from, right? The color. Okay, let's see what it is printing there. Go to the console, the color is coming as undefined, right? Why is that? Because when we create the context, we're not passing any default value, so that's why it is coming as that. Color is still undefined because let's say context, and then here we are importing green context dot provider color equal to green, or I think this is sorry, this is not the color, this should be the value. Sorry. So you don't need the default value here. Yeah, that whatever I said, that was true. Okay, so here you're getting the color, right? And then you can update it here. Now you're getting the green. So now see, this is changed to green. So the concept you would want to take here is basically you don't have to pass the props all the way to the components. You can just hook this use context into your component, and wherever you want to use this value, you can just hook it and then use the value directly here. It is that simple. So this is all you want to take from here. Next video we will go deep dive into use context and in more use cases of it. Okay, see you there. Bye.